Okay. Okay, go ahead. Kathy, you want me to take the roll?
Oh, yeah, right. Good idea.
Okay.
Why do I have this sign in Zoom? Huh. Join a meeting?
That's James sharing his screen with us.
Oh my God. Why don't I
All right, Kathy Conroy,
hear?
Katie McLaren,
Here.
John Normile,
Here.
Gary Pavlik. Gary, no audio again?
He's here. I saw him.
Okay. And Jack McLaren.
I'm here.
All right, we got everybody on.
Okay. So now we'll do our first case under old business, PLZBA 2020-0035, 10 Kinney Street, a use variance. Lauren Groff seeks a use variance for an accessory dwelling unit in an R1 zone. The applicant present?
Yes.
Okay, now, is this correct, James, that I'm getting the application? Oh, okay, here, I see Mr. Groff there now. Okay.
I'll keep that
There
up.
you are.
If we need it, I can share it, but I feel like it's a little bit distracting right now. So I'll turn it over. You know, we can turn it over to the applicants and they can take it.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Groff, now, I gather that you're here for the same use variance that you wanted last month.
Yes, correct.
And have you changed your application at all?
We have some support from the neighborhood that I submitted.
Okay, and James, do you have that?
I do, yes.
And perhaps you might just want to, how many letters of support did you receive?
So it's
Please,
one
yeah,
of support. It was submitted by the applicant, and it's got 5 names on the letter. So five people have signed this letter of support. It appears they're the immediate neighbors: 881 Spring Ave, 14 Kinney, 48 Spring Ave, 426 Spring Ave. Oh no, 418 Spring Ave and 426 Spring Ave, 410 Spring Ave. Apologies, the handwriting on some of these is a bit tricky, but yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Groff, you chose not to subdivide the property, correct?
correct. Yeah. I asked for it to be tabled last meeting because of the recommendation I had received here. So I investigated the option of parceling. The reason why I do have the picture behind me is to demonstrate that this is not the proper right or sane thing to do because this garage is not a house. Built in 1891 by Lewis Gurley, one of the Gurley brothers. These are historic structures, and this poor carriage house should not get orphaned. It would not be right to orphan it. I won't talk to the long-term negative impact financially, nor the craziness of the amount of easements that would be needed, as this building is in every way attached to the main house other than by wood or stone. We have been told that this variance request for the use variance is not possible. However, it is. That's why this is called the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's what a variance is for. It's completely possible, obviously, with a favorable decision of the board. Now, to that end, I remember there were some concerns around precedent. First of all, speaking to a former member of the board, other use variances have been granted in the past where the last check box isn't able to be checked about being self-inflicted. Second, of course, they would not grant such variance where all the check boxes were not checked if anyone came forward to protest or concern about it. As you can see by the letter submitted by my 5 direct neighbors, and I do have others from the neighborhood in presence that are in support of this, we have large support at this time. So no worries there. And then third, I would suggest basing any decision on the size of this parcel. Precedent would not be set for anything smaller than this, if you want to state that specifically, other than one other parcel in the city is larger than 5 acres. And then also, it's not substantial, but after speaking to a historian at the time that this carriage house was built, that there would not have been any indoor plumbing. So the picture I'm showing in the background next of a mantle being on the second floor of a carriage house could give some evidence that there had been some occupation of this building prior.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else to speak in favor of this proposal? Or do we have any questions for the applicant that we didn't ask last month from the members of the board? Or do we have somebody here who wants to speak down here in the corner?
Yeah,
Is that you, Jack?
nope, this is
No, ma'am.
Andy Chase.
No, I meant this one, 899, whatever that number is. Where's Jack, James?
I'm right here, Kath.
Oh, that's you. Okay, I just wanted to know which one you were. So if you highlighted, then I'll know that you're the one who wants to speak. But Andy Chase wants to speak, is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Go ahead.
I live at 46 Ford, the top of Ford Avenue, near the property, and have lived here for 30 years. I'm familiar with the property through the previous owner, and I've gotten to know the Groffs since they moved in, and I just don't see any objections amongst any of the neighbors to this happening. It's a large parcel of land separated from everything else. He's spoken to his immediate neighbors, and we're just thrilled that we've got people purchasing properties and investing money into the properties in the neighborhood at this point. And I would certainly encourage the board to consider anything to keep Troy the welcoming place that we want it to be. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
okay, thank you, Mr. Chase. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Members of the board? Jack, did you want to say something?
No, Madam Chair.
Why, I don't know why you keep highlighting up, Jack. I don't know that you light up. I gotta speak. Okay.
Well,
In any
here's the
event,
thing.
if we have, as a member of the board, I would just like to say that I personally feel that this is a project that should definitely go forward. What this gentleman wants to do is, I mean, the thought that we're here talking at length about something that is so positive, in my opinion, it's taking care of his in-laws. It's a unique piece of property. It's over 5 acres. The fact that it isn't addressed in the zoning ordinance, which is being rewritten as we speak. But I don't know. I have to support this, and regardless of whether or not he can meet the 4 points for the variance. It's ridiculous to not support it, in my opinion, and that's just where I'm going from. So I don't know how the other board members feel, because we have to have a secret. If you're ready to vote, we could vote after the secret. But in this day and age, I mean, we have serious problems in this world. This isn't one of them. You know. So I don't know. Does anybody else have anything they want to say before we have the secret? We spoke about this last month, so I don't see any reason why we have to reinvent the wheel here if we've already done it. If nobody has anything specific they want to add. Katie, do you want to do secret?
Yep. Madam Chair, I move that for ZBA 2020-0035, that the board find this to be an unlisted action with sufficient information available upon which to make a determination that the project is not expected to cause environmental impact.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jack, and on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried, and now we need a motion on the project itself. Do we have somebody who wants to make the motion?
I will make motion. Just have to find it.
Okay, I'll make the motion, huh?
Okay, I'll do it if you want.
Okay, go ahead, Katie.
looking for the page that I need. Okay. Madam Chair, I would like to make a positive motion to approve the project at 10 Kinney Street for a use variance to create an accessory dwelling unit in an R1 zone. I do not think that this use is going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I think, in fact, it will increase property values. I think it will improve the plot of land. So the plight of the owner is kind of due to unique circumstances here, I think, because it's an enormous plot of land, and I do think that he made the case for not subdividing it. And just trying to make sure I hit all these points. I guess, Andy, I feel like I'm flying blind here. Is that all right? Is that enough?
The last one is candidly the toughest one with this particular application. The board will have to make a finding that the hardship is not self-created. I would submit to the board that they may want to consider finding that the hardship is not self-created due to the uniqueness of the property. That's the best I can do for you.
Okay, which is kind of what I was getting at when I said that. So, right. So,
absolutely. Yep.
So the uniqueness of the property, and I do think that the applicant kind of proved why subdividing was not really in the best interests in this case. So positive motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. John Normile seconds, and on the motion, John Normile.
I'll vote in favor.
Jack McCann,
I'll vote in favor.
Gary Pavlik,
I vote in favor.
Katie McLaren,
Yes, I vote in favor.
and I, Kathy Conroy, vote in favor. So there you go, Mr. Groff. You got the in-laws, okay?
Thank you. That's actually my parents. Thank you.
Oh, it's your parents. Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good then. Good, I'm glad. Okay, good luck
Appreciate
to you.
Thank you much.
Next case, ZBA 2020-0043, 438 4th Street, area variances. Maurizio Casano seeks additional area variances for a previously approved project. The lot area deficiency, 9,700 square foot proposed, 11,000 square feet required. The lot width deficiency, 75 feet proposed, 165 feet required. And the parking deficiency, 11 parking spaces were previously approved, 9 were proposed, 22 required. In an R4 zone. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
I might also say that we already approved this for the area deficiencies, did we not?
Yes.
So just to clarify,
James,
Kathy,
where we are.
had approved this previously for the density. If you see on the notes there, the lot area deficiency. So he needs the lot area deficiency, the lot width deficiency, and the parking deficiency. The parking deficiency was based off of comments from the Planning Commission. So it had previously been approved for 11 parking spaces, 1 per unit. After going to the Planning Commission and having his site plan reviewed, they removed 2 of those parking spaces, and now he's back for the 9 spaces. 22 are required.
Right, and we had given him 11.
Right.
And now we can only have 9. But as far as the density is equal basically to the minimum lot width and size requirements, my point being, we already gave this to the guy. The
Yes.
the
So we did
deficiencies
density,
equals the density. We gave him the density last time.
Yes,
So
in
really,
effect, it was
yeah,
granted.
so what we're basically looking at in terms of a new discussion would be the 2 parking spaces.
Yes.
Because we already gave him the other stuff, even though we gave it to him under different words. Right?
Well, I'd recommend the board, obviously, we want to consider all three aspects of these area variances. But yes, the density that the board had considered previously, I would say this precedent has already been set for the minimum lot
Right.
width.
That's what I mean.
Minimum lot area.
Okay,
Yes.
my point being, if he didn't have to come back for the parking deficiency, he wouldn't be back for the other deficiencies because we already gave it to him in the density. So it's not nice to take it back now.
We
Right?
want to make sure that he has everything
Right.
ironed out. Yes.
I think
So-
we're saying the same thing, but my point being, I don't want to get up on a conversation about the deficiencies. Really, we only want to talk about the parking deficiency, I think, for right now,
Okay.
right? The other is like a cleaning up of something we did before. Anyway, Mr. Casano,
Yes,
I see you're there in your car, I think. Neat.
I'm in my truck.
Okay,
yeah.
so you want to explain to us, introduce yourself and tell us what happened?
So, my name is Maurizio Casano. I'm a general contractor. So in last year, I want to say right around this time, we put the application in, and we went for the various variances. And recently we received a notice that we needed to go to 9 parking spots. So we revised our drawings, submitted them, and now we're at 9 parking spots. And looking at the project, so as you mentioned, it's a 11 unit with a 1 clubhouse area. We currently have the child place at Unity. We've been communicating with them for the last month and a half about they want to occupy 2 floors of it. And they're going to make it into their 1 clubhouse space. They potentially want to look at it as a psychiatric area, so they can bring kids in and parents that are in trouble to have that communication. So this is a great thing, and so I chose to move forward again and communicate with the city on trying again at trying to make this a project. So the 9 parking spots, yes, we are definitely deficient to the requirements, and I'm looking for a relief there. There's parking on the street. The Unity Place House, they actually looking at the usage. That doesn't appear that there's going to be a lot of per se ownership of cars. But the main thing would be the bus route that they are constantly utilizing. It's Route 224, and it's also a second bike path. I think this is a great project. We've already been through a year with this, so I'm here again.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the applicant? John, Gary, Jack,
No.
Katie, nobody?
I have none.
Okay, is anybody here to speak in favor of this proposal? Anybody to speak in opposition? Okay, so now it's up to us, I guess. Does anybody from the board have anything they'd like to add or question? If not, we're just basically looking for the variance for the 2 more parking spaces and deficiencies which equate to basically the density from last year. So we really shouldn't have any issues with that. We gave them the approval for it last year.
I have one question, Kathy.
Okay, sure.
James, this might be a question for you. Those 2 parking spaces, can you explain for me a little better about what happened? Someone reviewed the plan and said there wasn't really room for 11 spaces?
Yeah, James, do you mind if I take that?
No, absolutely. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. Yeah. So at the after the planning commission reviewed the plan, it looked like 3 of the parallel spaces which were located along, Maurizio, help me out. What street is that located along? The three parallel.
Williams.
Williams.
William. Right. Okay.
Yep.
So the three parallel spaces along Williams went from the edge of the property to the edge of the drive lane. And so it would not be possible to actually park in one of those spaces. And so one of those was eliminated. Yep, right there. So there were three spaces all the way to the entrance. And we had to remove one in order to accommodate getting into and out of the spaces. And then on the perpendicular parking, you can see that there are only 7 spaces there now. And the reason for that is the striped area adjacent to the accessible parking space needed to be made a little bit larger to meet code. And so that when this plan made it to the commission, those 2 spaces had to be removed in order to be compliant with building code.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds like wasn't his fault. Okay.
I would say it wasn't. Had he had that review prior to being in front of the ZBA previously, he would have asked for the 9 spaces back then.
Right. Okay, do we have any further questions? Do we want to have a secret?
Sure. Madam Chair, I move that in ZBA 2020-0043, that the board find this to be a type 2 action with sufficient information available upon which to make a determination that the project is not expected to cause environmental impact.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Jack McCann seconds. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Do we have a motion on the application? John, you look like you're sitting up straight.
I'm paying attention,
No?
Beth.
Huh? No,
I'll defer.
step back down. Anybody want to make the motion, or I'll make it? I don't care. Nobody wants to talk tonight. Okay, then. I move in case ZBA 2020-0043. This is a positive motion to grant the lot area deficiency, the lot width deficiency. I should say the lot area deficiency is 9,700 square feet, which would be what, 1,300 is the deficiency. The width deficiency, which is 90 feet deficiency, and the parking deficiency, which would be 13 spots deficient. This is a positive motion to grant. I feel that the this area variance is not substantial, considering the fact that we had already given, it's only 2 more spaces than we gave them last year. After the study by the Planning Commission, I believe it will probably be determined that he cannot achieve these 2 parking spaces any other way. It won't be an undesirable change in the neighborhood. They're on a bus line. There's a lot of people that will be using this building who don't have cars, so that probably won't be a problem. And it will not have any adverse effect on the neighborhood. It's right in downtown Troy, and which is very much obviously an urban community. And there's a lot of walking, etc. Anyway, this is a positive motion to grant. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
John Normile seconds on the motion. Jack McCann,
I vote positive, yes.
Gary Pavlik,
I vote yes to approve.
Katie McLaren,
I vote no.
John Normile,
I vote yes to approve.
and Kathy Conroy, I vote yes. So your vote is 4-1, so you have your variance. You're good to go, Mr. Casano.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome. Next case, on to new business. ZBA 2020-0044, 39 Brunswick Road, an area variance FDC Development LLC seeks an area variance for a front setback deficiency, 10 feet proposed, 20 required, to construct 2 new 2-unit homes. The applicant present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Redmond Griffin. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and with me is Mr. Brian Sepperly, our engineer. This was before you back in June, and there were some people who objected to it and some members of the board that brought up some questions. At the time, that layout that was proposed needed a zoning variance for off-street parking. And we looked at the whole project together and decided that 3 lots with a house on each lot was going to be too much. By reducing it down to 2 lots, then each one can have parking space for 4 cars. So there's no need for a variance for automobile space at all. The only variance we're asking for is the setback for 10 feet rather than 20 feet in that zone. But the 10-foot would be keeping in style with the houses that are directly across the street. There's 9 houses, and the average is right around 9 to 10 feet on each one of them. So we feel it's a much smaller variance that we're asking for, and it's keeping within the layout of the area up there, which we want to keep it residential and nice layout.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Griffin. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Anybody from the board? John?
Yes. Is it the same square footage of the lot in that? Are there now two houses going on where 3 were proposed before?
That's
Or is it
correct.
a smaller.
No, it's the same area.
Thank you.
And we kept it at that so we could provide the space necessary to put 2 parking areas in on each lot to accommodate 4 cars. So it won't have an impact on the street with off-street parking.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the board? Or should we find out if,
I have a question.
you want to ask now? Okay.
Yes, the houses are not on Brunswick. They're on, what is the street that they're on?
Highland.
Highland, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody to speak in favor of this proposal? Anybody to speak in opposition? Mr. and Mrs. Rayner? Okay, we'll start with you and see if somebody else wants to chime in here. Want to introduce yourself, please?
Okay, so
Introduce yourself.
Timothy and Shannon Rayner. We live directly across the street at 1863. Also own 1861 to 1857, which are pretty much across the street from that. We're happy to see that, you know, that Frank DiCarlo and FDC made concession for those parking, because that was definitely something that was a great concern to us. As far as the other variance, I still feel that this variance is a self-made variance. I've got online and looked at FDC and Frank DiCarlo. They make some very beautiful homes. Would be extremely happy if one of those beautiful homes was across the street from us and not a prefabbed house. In regards to the idea that this is in line with the character of the neighborhood, although, I mean, these houses were built back in 1870s, 1910. There were no cars, so there's a lot of closeness to the street on some of these houses, including, you know, that just the 10-foot back. However, there's also a lot of back space in many of these houses for kids to play in the yard and things like that, where they wouldn't be playing close to the street if, for instance, families were to rent these houses. I feel that that would be problematic in that area. I would have, of course, an extremely different view of this if it was Frank and his family that were building to move across the street from us and they were going to be part of the neighborhood, but that's really not the case. I feel that I really feel that I would have to say no to this variance, just in the fact that really it's more of still an idea of fitting as much as they can in that property for income versus really what's beneficial for the neighborhood.
You do realize we're only discussing the area variance or the front setback.
Yes.
That's all we're giving the area variance for, not the number of houses or anything
Yes,
like that.
I
We're
do
just
realize that.
discussing the 10-foot versus the 20-foot setback.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
As long as you understand that. I mean, I appreciate, your other concerns maybe about the style of the house, et cetera, but that's not what we're here to discuss tonight here.
Thank
Okay. Just want to make sure you were aware of that.
you. Okay, well,
Mr. Yucatil, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you jumped up in here. So do you want to speak? Do you want to speak?
Actually, with regard to the variance with how
The Brunswick
far it
Road?
is, it's yeah, well, it's technically Highland Ave, right? I mean,
Well, Highland Avenue, yeah, but it's this case you're talking about. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. Actually, with regard to what you were saying, I actually don't have anything to say about that. The 10 feet versus the 20 feet setback. I was going to be sort of in line with what Tim was saying.
Okay, well, we're only here though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, so that's fine.
you know what I mean? And I understand when people are concerned about something, but but people have to understand too that we are only looking at the 10 versus the 20-foot setback.
Okay.
And anything else, maybe the planning commission could help you out. I don't know, but
Sure.
it isn't us. Is there
Okay.
anybody else? So is that it for you, Nathan?
Yeah, that's it for
That's
me.
it for
Thank
you. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say? No? Okay. Does anybody from the board have any further questions for the applicant?
I do have the comments from the neighbors that sent.
Oh,
me.
yes, I read them. I'm sorry. You're right.
And I won't read them all verbatim. There were 3 comments. One was from Elizabeth McLaren at 1883 Highland Ave. That was really specifically about the design of the homes. So, that would be left to the planning commission. Ash and Judy Capilla at 18 Boulevard Ave did make points specifically towards the setback or reference the setback specifically, saying it should not be granted as the applicant has established no compelling reason for this zone change. Obviously, they're going for the area variance. It appears that the applicant has a self-created problem in that the prefab design limits his footprint on the use of the land. If he were to change the design and put up one house, he would be able to stay within the variance. There is no reason why, for his personal benefit, the city should make exception to the current zoning. Changes to the zoning ordinance should not be granted arbitrarily and capriciously. Ash and Judy Capilla at 18 Boulevard Ave. The last comment I have from this, about this case, is from Gail Demonices. I don't know, I'm definitely getting that name pronunciation wrong, but referencing mostly environmental factors, mudslides or landslides, environmental impact overall, wildlife, oxygen, traffic, and the safety of the neighborhood. So yeah, I'm summarizing that one. The board, I did send this to you prior to the meeting. I
Right.
just want to make sure you have these on the record.
Right. Okay, thank you, James. Do any members of the board have anything further they would like to question or add or speak to Mr. Griffin about? If not, could we have, Katie, did you?
Yeah, I guess my question is, why can't the 20-foot setback be met?
Very easily, it's the severeness of the hillside in the back. It starts to drop down if we go much further behind the houses right now as they're laid out. If we had it, we would be happy if it was flat level land and we could go back the other 10 feet, but we don't have that space. The hillside starts to go down.
Okay.
Well, that's a good answer. Anybody else have anything they want to question the applicant about? Or should we go with the secret?
I'll do the secret. Madam Chair, I move that in ZBA 2020-0044, that the board find this to be a type 2 action with sufficient information available upon which to make a determination that the project is not expected to cause environmental impact.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jack McCann on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Who said no?
Gary.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the secret passes by a vote of 4-1. And now on the motion, or on the application itself, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Okay, John.
I move to not allow, to deny the motion in that the balancing test between the loss to the neighborhood and the gain to the property owner, it isn't justified. I think a use of the property could be achieved by other feasible means, maybe changing the layout of the house or the footprint of the house. Yeah, like I said, I do believe there would be an undesirable change in the neighborhood. I believe the request is substantial. And for those reasons, I make a motion to deny.
Do we have a second to deny?
I'll second. Gary.
Okay. Pardon me. And so we have a motion to deny the request. So if you vote yes, you're voting yes to deny. And a no would be to approve, just so that we're clear on that. I don't do well with double negatives, so I'm a little confused myself.
Just to be clear, Madam Chair, a no vote would not be a yes to approve. It would be a no to deny. And then there would
Yeah,
have to be a
I'm
subsequent
sorry.
motion.
Yeah, no, you're right. A yes is a no to deny. And
A yes
Say it
is a
again,
yes
Andy.
to deny.
Threw me off. Say
Just
it
to be
again.
clear, it's a motion to deny, so a yes vote is yes to deny. A no vote is no to deny, and if it doesn't pass, then another motion would need to be made to approve it.
Okay, got it. All right, so on the motion, Mr. McCann,
No to deny.
Mr. Pavlik,
Yes to deny.
Ms. McLaren,
Yes to deny.
Mr. Normile,
Yes to deny.
and Ms. Conroy, I'm a no to deny. And I'd just like to say the reason why I'm a no to deny is because I feel that the applicant has listened to our concerns and reduced his project by one house. Granted, I mean, the man is in business, so, you know, but he did reduce his project by one house. And more importantly, it was, he's only looking for a 10-foot setback variance, which will basically bring him into compliance with the other houses in the neighborhood, none of which are, or at least the majority of which are not 20 feet back. So I feel that we're putting him to a different test than the rest of the neighborhood. And that's the thing that we're looking at, is his front setback deficiency, not the style of house or anything like that. So I just want to make it clear as to why I'm voting no to deny. Okay.
Madam Chair.
In case we have 3 yeses to deny, 2 noes to deny, so the project fails. Did I say that right, Andy? Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, the project has failed. And now we'll move on to the last case. ZBA 2020-0045, Country Garden Apartments Phase 2. An area variance, Kevin Vandenberg seeks an area variance for a parking deficiency. 504 spaces are proposed, 624 are required, which would be a variance of 120 spaces. This is going along with the intention to construct 144 new units, which will result in 312 units total. Is the applicant present? I see the name.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. I think that's like a commercial, isn't it? Yes, we can hear you now.
I think you're right.
Okay, so Kevin Vandenberg is going to present his application. Kevin?
Is Stuart on?
I see nobody. I see Linda Foglia. Do you know her?
I'm looking for Stuart from Chazen.
No, nobody else is here.
Nobody from Chazen is here.
No, unless there's a Linda Foglia who is still on the board. She's not part of Chazen. The other people are all from the city, except for Eddie Griffin.
Mm.
So
he's got all the paperwork.
Would James?
You have a copy? Does everyone have a copy of our proposal?
I looked at it, but I don't have a copy of it in print.
Yeah, I have the proposal right here, Kevin. I can share that if you'd like.
If you could, thank you.
Roger did say Stuart would be on in his place, and I do not see Stuart on here.
No, neither do I. So I'll bring it from here.
Okay, let me know. I could scroll through the proposal. I did trim down the packet, Kevin. I got rid of the blank pages and a couple of the narrative, a little bit of the narrative that didn't pertain to the area variance. So you let me know if you want me to, where you want me to go with this.
Well, the area variance that we're looking for is a parking deficiency, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. And Stuart should have all this stuff. I'm not.
Well, unfortunately, you're the last case, so it's not like we can.
Yeah. Does anybody want to go watch television for an hour and I can get back?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Wherever Stuart is he could sign on, couldn't he?
Stuart was invited. He definitely was invited, and should have been able to sign in without hesitation.
James, nothing from you?
No, I haven't heard from Stuart. I have nobody in the waiting room. Yeah, I've sent Roger the Zoom details as well, so not sure if there was a miscommunication on their end, but I think we should move. Kevin, I mean, you can move forward and perhaps describe your.
Yeah, we don't have to. Yeah, we don't want to table contents and stuff.
If there are points that you need Chazen to make, we can always table and come back to this.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
That sounds great. Well, see, what we're looking for, the Kalishman family has had this property for in excess of 50 years in the city of Troy. And back in the early 90s, where the road dead ends, where the new construction starts, where the road goes up towards the two cul-de-sacs, right in that area there.
Uh-huh.
Back in the early 90s, all the infrastructure was put into place for additional apartments. Going back to the cul-de-sac to the right, you can see the stormwater goes down and everything goes over to there. Unfortunately, after all this was put in, Joe Kalishman, who originally built it, had an accident and subsequently passed on, and then family and everything is. So we're 25 years later, the infrastructure is in place, and they're looking to add on to the apartments. Also adding down the hill some.
And that's no problem. Adding the apartments on is no problem.
If I could chime in, this proposal was in front of the Planning Commission last month, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. You're adding 144 units to the existing 168, right?
Correct.
Okay, so at the last planning commission meeting, there was some public feedback. What Kevin hasn't mentioned yet is that there's an extensive trail network as part of this project. So the only public input we had at that time was positive. Everyone in the area is looking forward to this trail project becoming complete. What Kevin's here tonight for is just a parking deficiency that's going to be created when he adds in these 144 units. So the Planning Commission still has their review to accomplish here, but the issue that they're running into is that the zoning code requires 2 parking spaces per unit for any new units, and there's just not the real estate in order to accomplish that. Because as Kevin was saying, that the infrastructure that went in previously was under a different code, so it wasn't, the provisions weren't made to provide that much parking.
Correct.
I also seem to recall in the part of the booklet that I read that in the parts that have already been built and the apartments that are already there, there is a lot of extra parking because the need for the parking didn't materialize. People didn't have as many cars as was deemed necessary under the zoning code.
That's correct, Kathy. What we're finding is that the 2 spaces per unit that our zoning code requires is a little excessive.
Right.
Given modern apartments, we tend to see a rate that's more around 1.5 spaces per unit, or less if you get into a larger apartment complex.
So basically, they probably really, in reality, don't require 624.
That's certainly the applicant's position. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, right. I don't mean to argue his case. I'm just trying to get this straight.
You'll also notice that building,
but I do recall them saying that they didn't use all the ones they had in the apartments that were already there. So, Kevin.
Yes.
Why can't you come up with the 624? Did you tell us already? I'm all confused.
It's a tight constraint in the area because of the already in place infrastructure. All the water and sewer is in place already. It's tough to manipulate around them. You'll see that building 17, 18, 19, and 20. We were able to position them to utilize some of the existing parking spaces that are underutilized.
Okay.
The 4 buildings going across the back.
All right.
Here, I can't point it very well, but.
Yeah, it's all right. We're getting it.
Mm-hmm.
What did I read about the, I don't know, James, maybe it's you. Where did I see something about the land bank? Oh yeah, here it is, the land bank.
Not the land bank, but land bank parking.
That's what I meant.
I brought that up in our conversation earlier.
Yeah, the land bank parking.
The Planning Commission has not discussed this to my knowledge in their last meeting, but they often do when applicants are doing a larger project like this and they're seeking parking variances. Sometimes the Planning Commission will suggest land banking parking, which is just preserving some green space that is earmarked to become parking later if deemed necessary. So it's a good way to conserve some of that impervious surfaces, some of that impervious surface, and produce less impervious surface, and address it later on if needed. So I don't know if the Planning Commission is seeking that, or if they're going to go that route, or if the applicant would be open to that. But I just wanted to discuss that with you earlier.
Kevin,
well,
do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, in just one respect, that the 2 parking theory is kind of falls down to 1.5 spaces is kind of what's the norm outside of the city of Troy. And I think that we provide sufficient parking closer to the 1.5 spaces.
Okay.
Because the buildings down the back, a lot of them have garages now, the new buildings and stuff. And I'm not opposed to land banking some areas for parking in the event that we did need them. I have no problem with that at all. But I honestly think that we've got pretty good parking.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, Kevin, I wasn't suggesting that the area, I wasn't suggesting more parking than you proposed. So you're proposing 504 spaces. I wasn't suggesting that you'd have that plus additional land bank parking. I was just bringing that up to Kathy in case the Planning Commission wanted to explore that route in the future, if there was a way to prevent you from having to come back and get an additional variance, similar to what the applicant for 438 4th had to do. You know, sometimes the Planning Commission does update the parking plans with the applicant. Obviously, in this case, that would be you. And I just wanted to discuss that with the board, potentially saving you from coming back for another meeting.
I got you.
So maybe there would be a stipulation that they would agree to land bank the spaces in case they needed them. Right? Do that now?
I think, Kathy, if you were interested in following James's lead there, what you could do this evening, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could give a variance that the applicant is requesting, and you could make a condition that through the Planning Commission review up to, say, 5% or 10% of the 504 spaces required could be land banked.
Right.
So in other words,
said that, Aaron. I kind of think that's what I meant. Maybe I didn't say it clearly enough.
Sorry, I might have misunderstood.
Yeah, but that's what but I think we're both saying the same thing. It's my point.
And we're okay with it.
You're both entirely correct on how to do it. What you cannot do is grant a variance larger than what is requested. So your maximum is what's requested.
Which is 120.
Right.
Okay. So we could land bank maybe what? I don't know how many. 60.
Well, Andy, you're 60? Saying that we can't really land bank any additional
Not land bank. Stipulate that with the stipulation when you get to the Planning Commission.
Right. You can grant a variance. You can grant a variance of up to 120 spaces because that's what's requested. In addition to that, you can place a condition on it that should the planning board approve, X number in addition to that can be land banked rather than built. Or leave the percentage determination to the Planning Commission.
Right.
Just pass along a recommendation to land bank it.
Yeah.
Only because
towards the 624.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. All right. So we know what we're talking about here. And Kevin, do you have anything further you want to add before we? Oh, there you are.
I am.
Do you have anything further you want to add right now?
Do you all have big screens for my head to fit in? That's what I'm most curious about. No, the only thing that I would add, Ms. Conroy, is that at the planning board meeting, we are going to make a donation of land back to the city of Troy for some of the property that the city has better uses for. And
up in that area, you mean?
I'm sorry?
Up in that area?
Yes. Yeah, down below where the water retention is and everything like that.
Nice. Where they're going to have the trail or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we were met with a lot of positive people on that respect.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, for trails within the city limits, I think that's you can do it. That's a good thing to do. How about, all right, anybody else here to speak in favor? Maybe we can get rid, you're right, can we get, are we done with the pictures now, James?
Sure, I could stop sharing, yes.
Yeah, please. I'm never big on sharing. How about, okay, we have Linda Foglia here. All right, let's just ask, is there anybody to speak in favor of this proposal? Anybody to speak in position? Okay. Do we have any further questions for the applicant? Other than where is Stu?
My only question was Kevin, are you guys, I didn't know if you guys, how committed you guys were to building this trail system, and if that had come up to the board as something to stipulate at all. From my perspective, the trail system seems to create a more walkable environment that would alleviate some need to have a car or more parking. So I didn't know if that would be relevant to this, if the board would see this as relevant to the variance, and if the applicant would be willing to make a stipulation or accept a stipulation regarding that.
Well, we're going to donate the land. The actual construction of the trails and everything, we're going to kind of leave up to that group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I wasn't trying to insinuate that you'd be responsible for any trails off of your property. I guess I'm referring specifically to the connections that you're showing on your site plan.
The existing trails that we have around the existing property?
I know you have the ones that are there today, but the ones that you're showing, in your site plan right here, I'm not going to share my screen again, but they do kind of go out and then to the parcel line and then dead end. So I didn't know if those were, if that would be relevant to this variance, if the board would see it as relevant to the variance or not.
If it helps, James, the Planning Commission did ask that the applicant look into some sidewalk connections and things of that nature along Colleen Road. Is that along the same lines?
Sure, yeah, that would be along the same lines. It's just, when we're talking about the need for parking, I think any kind of walking connection is extremely relevant. So sidewalks along Colleen Road as well. Yes, thanks, Aaron, for bringing that in.
Well, there are sidewalks down Colleen across the street from our property. Are you asking for us to designate parking areas for people to pull in and start their walks from?
No, not necessarily. I'm simply saying what you're showing on your site plan. Yeah, I'm just asking if that would be relevant to the area variance to stipulate that you guys are committing to building those trails that you're showing on your site plan on the parcel that you're showing, not on the city plan.
Well, I'll tell you this much, James. We have a stone dust trail around the property that I think goes about a quarter of a mile up to a half a mile, that is currently used by a lot of neighbors around the area up there, as well as a lot of tenants. So it's been an advantage to Country Gardens to have these, and it will be an advantage for them to have them extended out into the areas we're looking to develop more.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Sure. Yes. Thank you.
Might I ask, is this Stu who's joined us, Kevin?
Yeah, hi, this is Stuart
Okay,
Messenger
you
with
left him hanging, Stu, okay? He was here without the paperwork. But he did a fine job, so be sure to keep him.
Did you start without me?
Yeah, we're done. We're done.
I thought it was
We'll
7
call on you.
o'clock.
You stay there. We'll call on you when we need you.
Wait, no, seriously, are you done? I can't build a guy now.
Just about. Just stick around for a minute.
Okay.
What was the question on the pass?
Yeah, you said you were going to connect, you were going to donate land back that would be used somehow or other with the trail.
Right.
Right? Whatever. You said that you plan to do that.
We'll give them the land. They build the trail.
But you're not building the trail. You're just giving them the land to build the trail on, or connect to the trail, I should
And the
say.
boundaries of that land that's going to be donated are going to come from the end result of what our full site plan looks like at the end. We're not committing to any lot lines yet, just in case we need to move them back and forth. But throughout the process of the approval process, those lines will be defined.
But you're just committing to the concept
Yes,
that you're going to donate land back.
yes.
Okay. Do we have any further questions for Kevin or Stu, is it?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. John?
I have a question, Kathy.
Yes.
Can the applicant speak to the financial hardship that requires this many units in the expansion? If there were fewer units, there'd be a lower need or less of a need for parking spaces?
Well, there's a financial investment that has to be made into the development of this. The infrastructure, the engineering, everything like that that goes in. And that's how we make a determination on what we're trying to get to recoup the investment, to keep the thing. Does that answer it?
Well, we've had other applications in front of the board, and we've tried to hold the applicants to that standard, that they at least show, some of the financial reason for the application. When 110 is a lot of spaces. So when something is that big, we have asked some questions about the hardship.
Andy might be able to chime in on this, but the financial hardship, because this is an area variance, right, Andy?
Right.
Correct.
So the financial hardship only has to be part of it if the significance is deemed, if it's deemed not significant, then the board could find in favor, regardless of whether or not the financial hardship is entirely there. Is that correct, Andy?
That's mostly correct. Lack of reasonable return and proof with valid financial evidence of financial hardship is part of the use variance test. So it's not specifically required for an area variance, but one of the area variance test criteria is whether or not the benefit can be obtained by some other means feasible for the applicant to pursue. So when demonstrating that element of the test, financial considerations can be a part of the demonstration of meeting that element of the test.
I have a question, I think that might go along with that, in that this is considered the Country Garden Apartment Phase 2. Those apartments have been up there a long time. Probably, I don't know, how many years? Forever?
In excess of 50.
Yeah, okay. So when
early mid-60s.
And that would be Phase 1. So when Phase 1 was built, was there an intention at the time to go on to Phase 2?
There was also to the point where some of the infrastructure was put into place for the second phase. That's when Mr. Kalishman, Joe Kalishman, the original builder, that's when he had his accident. And
that's why Phase 2 never...
It came to a halt.
It came to a halt because he died?
Yes.
Okay.
It took him several years to pass on, but it was...
So back then, in the 60s or whenever, this was started with the understanding that Phase 2 would follow Phase 1. Right? From the city. I don't know if you had to get, we were all too young in the 60s. Some of us probably weren't even here.
Most of that work, though, was started, the work that's in place in the back portion was done in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Where he came for approvals, got his approvals to expand, and during his expansion, he fell upon it, actually fell on the ice and hit his head and died several years later.
Oh dear.
Can I talk for a moment, please?
Surely. Who is this?
This is Linda Foglia.
Oh, finally, we meet you, Linda. Yes.
How are you?
Fine.
I live in Emerald Greens, and I'm surprised that we're talking about parking spaces when the official 21 new buildings aren't even approved yet. So the way I understand this is, back in the day when the project started at Country Gardens, they were approved to do 7 additional buildings moving forward.
Yes.
And now I'm reading that you want to add 21 more buildings?
There were 7 initial buildings, but I believe there were 16 unit each. Back in,
So what has already been approved versus proposed for the number of buildings?
I can help
We,
with that if you'd like.
we are only here to discuss the parking. That is
Right,
our job.
I understand that. But what I'm just trying to see if there's anybody clear here that can respond, that it seems like we're putting the horse before the cart, because these buildings haven't even been approved yet by the.
Linda, perhaps I can shed some light on this. The typical order of operations is that the applicant receive any area variances or use variances required for their project before the project moves on to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
So this project, in order for Kevin to move forward, he needs to receive these area variances and know that he's going to have these in place in order to go to the Planning Commission with less than the required amount of parking. If he goes to the Planning Commission and doesn't have the required amount of parking, the Planning Commission will say, go get your variance. So that's why Kevin is here this evening.
Okay.
And I might also say that Stu said that he can address your question, Linda.
I think
Didn't you,
you
Stu?
asked about the number of units existing.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Sorry. I think
That's
you
right.
asked about the number of units existing and proposed and the number of
Yes.
parking spaces existing and proposed. So that was the question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there's 144 units existing with 312 parking spaces. There's an additional 230, I'm sorry, I gave you the proposed. Let me start over. Apologies. There's 168 units existing, and there's 269 spaces existing. The applicant proposes an additional 144 units for a total of 312, and an additional 235 spaces for a total of 504. So the ask is.
So just so you know, I appreciate your clarification. I'm not quite sure that Emerald Greens knows that this is happening. And I will tell you that some of these folks up in Emerald Greens looking at these buildings is not going to be too comfortable. So I understand the project, and housing is housing, but I will say this: we are going to be in full force, and perhaps maybe the back might be a little bit okay without any problems. But if you're going to be adding 21 new buildings, I think I might have that number right, and they're butting up to Bellina and Colleen with apartments that rent for as low as $800. Not quite sure what those people are going to be like, but we have a really nice neighborhood that could essentially decrease in value because you're butting up to Bellina and Colleen, and it will affect the neighbor.
Okay, might I just interject here, as Katie just
And we'll
pointed
deal
out?
with that, and we'll deal with that with the planning commission.
Approximately
Katie has
15
something to
minutes
say.
ago- Approximately 15 minutes ago, our chairwoman asked if anyone here was in opposition to the project, and then we moved on to the board discussing it. So we've essentially halted our meeting to go back and answer some questions. This is a matter of public record, and any of the people in Emerald Greens could have showed up tonight as you have.
We just
And
found out about it.
also, just as much to the point, as Katie said earlier, this is about the parking. It's not about the number of units there, and it's certainly not about the people who are going to live there. That is just not someplace you want to go with me personally, anyway. The type of people that are going to live there are unacceptable to you. That's just my personal thing. this is discussing the parking and the parking only. If you want to take your concerns about the number of units, that would go to the planning commission. Not
That's
here
absolutely true, and I
and not
understand that.
now. So really, there's no
And I
point in
understand
having
that.
this discussion go any further because you're discussing issues that do not refer to the parking, which is all, as Aaron said, they need to have their parking variance when they go to the planning commission. So that is an issue that is taken care of there. Anything
Right.
further?
I wasn't aware of that.
Anything further, you might just want to couch your concerns about the people who are going to perhaps live there in some different terms. That's just me talking. Okay, so do we have anything further amongst the board members that we would like to speak to? Or are we ready? Jack, do you have a question or
No,
the
ma'am.
applicant?
No,
No?
Madam Chair.
I don't know why you keep lighting up, Jack. I don't know. All right. So,
What can I say?
all right, I know. You ready? Are we ready for a secra? If we have no further questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that in ZBA 2020-0045, that the board find this proposal to be a type 2 action with sufficient information available upon which to make a determination that the project is not expected to cause environmental impact.
Do we have a second on the secra?
I'll second it.
Jack McCann, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And now do we have a motion on the application? Okay. I guess I'll do it. Then I make a motion that we approve the parking deficiency of 120 spaces, which are needed for a parking deficiency to construct 144 new units, resulting in 312 units total. I believe that the circumstances are such with the project having been, I don't want to say approved in the past, but having been planned in the past, and then because of unfortunate circumstances, it was halted. Part of the infrastructure was already in place. I don't believe that the area variance is substantial, only because I don't believe, when it comes down to it, that you're going to need 120, that you're going to need 624 spaces. So I think that the number of actual parking spaces will be less. I don't believe that will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. The phase 1 of the project is already there, and that doesn't have any negative impact on the neighborhood, so I don't see why these parking spaces would. The difficulty was not, oh, I don't have to do that one. I will say that an undesirable change will not be produced in the character of the neighborhood, which is similar to what I just said with the fact that the phase 1 has already been completed. I will say that this motion to grant is with the stipulation that you will address an agreed upon number at the planning commission of of spaces that can be land banked. Am I saying that right, James? James left. Probably
I'm
hungry.
right here. I'm right
Okay.
here.
Did I say that correctly? We wanted the spots, whatever number the planning commission deems appropriate, we want considered in the land bank, to be land banked.
And Andy, do you want to take this one?
Oh, Andy?
Sure. I think it would be a recommendation from the ZBA to the Planning Commission that they consider further reductions in parking through the banking process to preserve green space, but then allow for those parking spaces to be installed if required and needed due to demand.
Well, that was a much better way of saying what I just said, right?
Thanks.
Okay. But it is but I did have the intention correct? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was just a lawyer way of saying the same
You're
thing.
right, exactly. A lot of sentences where I said it in a couple of words. I got it. And also a stipulation that, that the applicant intends to make some sort of a connection to the Troy Urban Trail Network, some sort of a land connection, without specifying what that will be. Oh my God, I gotta rest. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll
Please.
second.
Gary Pavlik, seconds.
Yes.
On the motion, John Normile,
Vote yes to approve.
Katie McLaren,
Yes to approve.
Gary Pavlik,
Yes to approve.
Jack McCann,
Yes to approve.
and Kathy Conroy, yes to approve. Okay, you have your variance. Good luck with the planning commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have no further business? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Yes?
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we done? Can we all click
Aye.
on leave now?
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, good
Take
night.
care.
Good night,
Be safe,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a safe week.
Oh, yeah, really.
Wear your mask.